Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Prophets Isaiah chapter 11 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Now, we're going to take a really deliberate look at the plain, literal meaning of these verses. We call that the Peshat. So you don't need to search for any hidden codes today. Instead, let's just allow this absolutely incredible text to speak for itself as we uncover this profound vision of leadership, universal justice, and, ultimately, peace.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover context and the lineage, the Spirit of the Lord, righteous and equitable judgment, clarifying some difficult Hebrew imagery, key ideas and lessons, and finally a chapter recap and conclusion.
Section 1. Context and the lineage. Let's ground ourselves directly in the source material so we can figure out exactly who is being described here in these opening verses.
What we are looking at is the 1917 Jewish Publication Society translation of the Masoretic text. It's a highly respected, super faithful translation of the original Hebrew. Now, we aren't going to rush today. We want to read this narrative as a complete whole, discovering what this text actually says about the character of God and the ultimate ideal for human leadership, going verse by verse.
Looking right at verse 1, the prophet introduces a specific lineage to really anchor this prophecy in history. He says, "And there shall come forth a shoot out of the stock of Jesse, and a twig shall grow forth out of his roots." Notice the highly visual language here. Picture a mighty tree that's been completely chopped down to a stump. It looks totally dead, but beneath the surface, life is quietly waiting in the roots, ready to sprout again against all odds.
So to put this in plain English, the stock of Jesse refers to the ancestral line of Jesse, who, if you remember, was King David's father. This beautiful imagery of a shoot and a twig means that a revitalized leader is going to emerge directly from this specific, seemingly dormant historical family tree. The royal line of David might look like it's been cut down, but a new, legitimate leader will suddenly grow right from its base. It's a message of profound hope, literally starting from the ground up.
Section 2. The Spirit of the Lord. Now that we know his origins, what exactly empowers this new leader to succeed where others have failed?
Verse 2 starts off with this crucial statement, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him." The text is making it absolutely clear right from the jump that this leader's power isn't coming from mere human strength or political cunning. He's not ruling out of ordinary ambition. No. He rules because a continuous divine source is resting upon him, completely guiding his mind and his actions.
So what exactly does this spirit consist of? Well, the prophet lists 6 distinct attributes. First up, the spirit of wisdom and understanding. This means having deep, intuitive insight into the really complex nature of human situations. Next, we have counsel and might. Think of this as the ability to formulate brilliant, just strategies, and then having the actual practical strength to execute them. And finally, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. These aren't just vague compliments, right? They are the deliberate foundational pillars of righteous leadership.
Let's actually clarify that last attribute, the fear of the Lord, because that phrase is so easily misunderstood. Verse 3 explicitly notes that his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. Now, you don't delight in sheer terror, do you? So the crucial takeaway here is that this refers to a profound, joyful reverence and awe for God, rather than just being frightened. His entire worldview and his deepest joy are shaped by this ultimate respect for the divine order.
Section 3. Righteous and equitable judgment. Let's see how this wisdom and reverence actually translates into real-world equity.
First, we're told what he will not do. The text says, "He shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither decide after the hearing of his ears." He purposefully ignores superficial impressions. He doesn't get swayed by who looks wealthy, who has the nicest clothes, or who speaks the loudest in the courtroom. He pierces right through all that noise and the surface-level illusions that normally trip up ordinary judges.
Notice the brilliant contrast the prophet is making here. Human judgment, which is based on mere sight and hearing, is naturally flawed. It's biased. But this leader, he looks right past the illusions of the courtroom or the marketplace to uncover the absolute objective truth. He replaces superficial sight and hearing with deep, piercing justice.
Moving into verse 4, we get the positive formulation. It says, "But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the land." The core focus of his righteous judgment is specifically directed toward protecting the vulnerable. Think about ancient societies. The poor and the meek were the absolute easiest targets to exploit because they completely lacked social power. But this leader uses his divine wisdom to deliver flawless, balanced equity specifically for those who cannot defend themselves.
Section 4. Clarifying difficult Hebrew imagery. Now, let's take a moment to carefully unpack a really potent piece of biblical idiom found at the end of verse 4.
And he shall smite the land with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. Okay, to a modern ear, this phrase sounds intensely physical, maybe even a bit violent. So let's translate this ancient imagery into a clear, simple concept that captures what the prophet actually meant.
The rod of his mouth is actually a beautiful metaphor. It represents the power of spoken truth and righteous decrees to enact justice. See, he doesn't need to swing a physical club or a sword. His words, his legal decisions, and his moral pronouncements carry the absolute force of justice. He strikes down wickedness simply through the pure, undeniable truth on his lips. His words alone are powerful enough to transform society and enforce equity. It's a real game changer.
Section 5. Key ideas and lessons. So, how do the literal meanings of these verses actually apply to our lives today?
Before we get to the personal application, we've got to recognize the full, incredible scope of Isaiah chapter 11. It doesn't just stop at verse 4. Moving verse by verse through the rest of the text, verse 5 tells us that righteousness will literally be the belt around his waist. Then, in verses 6 through 9, the prophet describes the ultimate result of this flawless leadership, a miraculous, unprecedented peace in nature itself. The text paints this vivid picture: the wolf living with the lamb, the leopard lying down with the goat, a calf and a young lion grazing together, and get this, a little child leading them, a cow feeding with a bear, a nursing infant playing completely safely near a cobra's hole. No way, right? But why? Because as verse 9 explains, they shall not hurt nor destroy, for the earth will be completely full of the knowledge of the Lord, just as the waters cover the sea. The whole natural order of predator and prey is transformed into total harmony. Then, from verse 10 all the way through 16, the chapter concludes with a sweeping, powerful promise. This root of Jesse will stand as a signal, a grand banner to the peoples of the world. Nations are actually going to actively seek him out. And in that day, the Lord will set his hand a second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left. He'll gather them from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamath, and the distant islands of the sea. He will gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Ancient rivalries, like the jealousy between Ephraim and Judah, will totally vanish. Finally, the Lord will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea, making a clear, unobstructed highway for the remnant of his people to return home, exactly like there was for Israel back in the days they came up out of Egypt. So, looking at the breathtaking scale of this entire chapter, how do we apply it to us? It's basically an invitation to build our own ideal selves. First, we need to actively cultivate wisdom and counsel. Second, we have to look much deeper than surface appearances. And third, we must act with equity toward the vulnerable.
As traditional study of the Tanakh constantly reminds us, the goal isn't just to learn historical facts. It's about personal transformation. A profound piece of daily liturgy hits the nail on the head here. Ever shall a person be God-fearing in secret as in public, with truth in his heart as on his lips. We're being called to align our own internal truth and our outward speech with this prophetic model, effectively making the rod of our mouth a tool for building that exact peaceful world that Isaiah envisioned.
Section 6. Chapter Recap and Conclusion. Let's do a quick run-through of our journey across the entirety of Isaiah chapter 11. All right, so we've seen who this figure is. He's a shoot rising from the dormant roots of Jesse. We've seen what guides him, those continuous spirits of wisdom, counsel, and profound reverence. We've seen how he acts, totally rejecting superficial judgments so he can deliver equitable justice for the meek through the pure truth of his spoken word. And finally, we saw the ultimate result of this leadership, a miraculously peaceful world where the wolf actually lies down with the lamb. The earth is flooded with the knowledge of God, and the dispersed exiles are finally gathered from the four corners of the earth back to their home.
So, as you go about your week, ask yourself, are you judging the world merely by what your eyes see and your ears hear? Or are you striving to look deeper, to try and create a little bit of Isaiah's peaceable kingdom right in your own community? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.